and some of the other big stories in politics. Let's talk to Nick Buckley, MBE, the campaigner and commentator. Hi there, Nick.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today here on talkTV. Where is Boris Johnson? Where has he gone?
You could have said that any time in the last 3 years. It makes absolutely no difference where Boris Johnson is, because he's been missing in action for the whole 3 years of his premiership.
But, I mean, there are many people that would say, well, look, you know, I don't know where your politics lay, Nick, but are you anti-Conservative or just anti-Boris?
I'm neither. I mean, I voted for Boris the last general election because I wanted Brexit done. I voted Conservative many times throughout my life. I bought into the hype of Boris and his feel-good factor and him, you know, his patriotism at the last election. I bought into all that and I thought, he's what we need. But everybody who was against him, I hate to admit it, were right. He was just words. He's been the biggest disappointment as a Prime Minister we've ever had, especially when you consider his 80-seat majority. He could achieve anything he wants. He hasn't got a vision for the country. I don't think he ever had. I just think he wanted to be Prime Minister. So I'm not anti-Boris. I like the man. You know, there's places for him in government to do a good job, but he isn't a leader. He's not what we needed.
So I would agree with everything that you've said, other than the last statement where there are places in government where he could do a good job. I don't think you could point to one post he's ever held in government where he did a good job. I don't think there has ever been a political post that he's ever held where he did a good job.
I think there's many jobs he can't do, but what I meant by that was he's a good salesman.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They put in a salesman to get Brexit over the line, and it worked because he got the majority. But what I completely agree with you on is what a wasted opportunity he had to have. And part of it wasn't all down to him because, you know, obviously he was confronted with COVID, but he had an amazing opportunity with that to have shown that he was a statesman-like, brilliant leader, putting our freedom at the forefront of his agenda, and he didn't. He faltered from lockdown to not lockdown, to listening to Sage, to not listening to Sage, to listen to the NHS, to not listening to them, and U-turning and not U-turning, and just blustering and bounding around like some sort of randy buffoon. And he also didn't then have, in any way, shape or form, any kind of ideological path by which he could have used that 80-seat majority to have saved this country from the mess it is in right now. And I think that's a real shame, because whether you loved or loathed Boris, for so many years we haven't had a decisive government with a decent majority in order to get through meaningful change. And he had that, and he blew it.
He did. And I think the way I round up Boris the last 3 years is his hero is Churchill. And when Churchill was vandalised by Black Lives Matter and he was put into a box and it was all boxed up, the statue, Boris Johnson said nothing, he did nothing. The country was screaming out for leadership, for someone to take on Black Lives Matter, or for someone to stand up and say, we're not a racist country, this is an American organisation with American problems, it's not welcome here. He said nothing because he was coward, just like a lot of the people.
Well, he's obsessed with people liking him rather than actually being a good leader. So, on that note, if we move away from Boris, what can the new leader of the Conservative Party learn from Boris's mistakes? How can they separate themselves from it? What do they need to do to make you believe that a page has been turned?
I don't think Rishi or Liz are capable of that. I think, just like Boris to a certain extent, career politicians, the best we can hope from either of them two who are running now for leadership of the Tory party, which will be who is the Prime Minister, they're basically caretakers. It's going to be more of the same. They will tweak it a little bit with their personality or something they favour or don't favour, but we're going to have more of the same, because hardly anybody in politics wants to be that leader, wants to be that Margaret Thatcher who will take people on and will be unpopular, will change the country.
I couldn't agree more. You said the two magic words to me, Margaret Thatcher, and the only one that I was impressed by was Kemi Badenoch, because
absolutely
she was saying things that people would have found quite unpopular. Her views on critical race theory, her views on trying to bring back various, certainly economic, Tory values, and there were definitely people who didn't like her for that. Well, I'm sick of a politician that wants to be liked. I want one that's right. I want one that just does what they believe to be the right thing, and I think that we've been lacking in that on all sides. No, we put all that down to Boris. We've been lacking on all sides, and on that note as well, because anyone who listened to all of this thinking, well, you know, we've got Keir Starmer, he's going to be honourable. Well, apparently not. He's just been found to have breached the MP's code of conduct 8 times. I mean, he didn't declare tickets for a football game. He didn't declare tickets for an award ceremony. He had also didn't register a number of interests as well that he should have done. Now, the commissioner for all of this, the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, said, look, these are all very minor breaches, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah. I read this article yesterday, and my understanding was it wasn't that he didn't register them, it was he registered them late. That's why it was classed as minor. Now, was he trying to hide something? No. I mean, let's be honest. Sir Keir Starmer is a multi-billionaire. Does he care about £170 football tickets? No, he doesn't. But what this does show, for someone who wants to be Prime Minister, is the incompetence of him running his own office.
And you can't sit at the dispatch box or stand at the dispatch box and quite reasonably decry Boris Johnson's lack of detail and lack of commitment to you know, dotting the I's and crossing the T's when you're not doing so yourself. You've got to be above reproach yourself, and sadly he isn't. I mean, is he really the man that is going to lead Labour to a victory in a couple of years' time? Because at the moment, I'm still not impressed.
No, I don't think he is. What I thought Keir Starmer would have done when he became leader of the opposition, a Labour leader, was do what Neil Kinnock did. We needed somebody who took the party by the scruff of the neck and made it electable, and had a war, an internal
Neil
war.
Kinnock.
So what did I just say?
You said that they need to be someone like Neil Kinnock to make it electable. I think you mean Tony Blair.
No. It was Neil Kinnock who started the rooting out of the far left crazies.
He did try, but he never made them electable. I mean, he lost 2 elections on the trot, Neil Kinnock.
Yeah, but he started the process.
All right, I mean, I'll give you that. I mean, he didn't really succeed in it, but I'll give you that. He did try.
Yeah, he started the process, but the point I was trying to make was we need someone to... Labour Party are not electable, and I can't see him being electable until somebody comes in and starts to root out the far-left lunatics in the Labour Party. But that person will not be elected Prime Minister because they'll be too divisive, they'll be hated too much. But somebody has to take the bullet sometimes for the greater good of the party and the greater good of the public. So we need a strong Labour Party in this country because we can't just rely on the Tories to do the right thing for the people all the time.
And you're right, it's actually strong opposition. And look at what happened. I mean, we ended up with, you know, certain parts of the previous Labour administration economically, because they were following the Conservative model, I was not against, but certainly other areas of their administration, deregulation of the banks even further, the allowing sort of unfettered free movement from many of the EU countries, which led to where we ended up with Brexit, parking people on tax credits. All of those sorts of decisions were made when we had a Conservative Party at the time, which was in pieces, because bad opposition leads to bad government. And it's really important in order to have good government that we have actually credible, good opposition that makes the government in power at the time think, you know what, we've got to make sure our act is good enough because there's a government in waiting over there if we don't. And we've not had that as well for many, many years. Nick Buckley, good to talk to you. Thank you. That's Nick Buckley with his take on the week, the campaigner and commentator. When we come back...